Hey, what is up everyone? DiscussionVerse here to discuss the much anticipated season 1 finale for DC's Creature Commandos. This is on HBO Max and does launch the new DCU that Gunn is bringing now on screen and is going to be followed up by Superman in theaters in July 2025. I did do a video on that, so be sure to check that out after this one. Before we get into this episode discussion, I do want to remind you guys that this is the road to 500 subscribers, so please like, comment, and subscribe, especially if you are new to the channel. With that out of the way, let's get right into this. The season finale dives deep into Nina's tragic backstory. This is Nina Mazeri. She was born with her lungs outside of her body, and while her father, a famed scientist, continued on to love her, her mother ended up leaving the picture. With Edward sticking around and continuing to take care of her, he ended up creating devices to help her breathe. But of course, over the years, that couldn't be something that could continue because it weighed almost the same as her, if not more than her, while she was growing up. So his obsession with experimentation and changing her DNA does end up turning Nina into a metahuman. After years of homeschooling, Edward Mazeri attempts to integrate her into a private school in order to have socializations with other humans, but she faces bullying and ends up running away, ultimately hiding in Star City's sewers. Yes, that's Star City, as we do get that name drop here for Green Arrow's famed city. We also get Bloodhaven mentioned in this episode along with Metropolis during Nina's backstory. Now, after being captured by police, Edward Mazeri does end up reuniting with her in a short moment in order to try to stop them and intervene. In this moment, Nina does ultimately watch her father get shot and killed in front of her eyes as she is taken away into Belle Reve. In the present day, we see Rick Flag Sr. waking up from his coma following his fight with Clayface, and he wakes up just long enough to warn Waller. Waller and John Economos then go to investigate. Simultaneously, Eric Frankenstein tracks down Task Force M in order to reunite with the bride, only to be shot by her and left for dead. This shortly comes after the team find footage of the princess and Clayface having discussions prior to the events of the Creature Commandos first showing up. Meanwhile, Nina is tasked with assassinating Rostovich. While the princess goes for a swim and is guarded, the plan is to use Nina and her abilities in water in order to go and kill her. While they do that, Weasel is still having flashbacks of seeing the princess as the little child that he tried to save in his backstory. But this ends up becoming the ruse of all the plans because Weasel does end up alerting her in his attempts to save her, quote unquote, because he doesn't understand the full complexity of what's going on. This unfortunately leads up to Princess Rostovich gaining the upper hand on Nina while in the water, and she ends up stabbing Nina to death. And this is really heartbreaking by the fact that this is the first time Nina felt like she was recognized and a part of the monsters. Because again, you gotta remember with her story, she never felt like she was a part of the humans nor the monsters. She even said that at certain points in the episodes because she never made a kill. But in the bride's encouragement and also part of Dr. Phosphorus' encouragement, she does try to go through and kill the princess. But it ends up to this tragedy scene here. And if it wasn't tragic enough, this happens after Waller and John Economos find out that McPherson is dead and find Clayface's dead body to confirm that she was indeed murdered. And this whole plan was a ruse in order to convince them that the princess was indeed a target. This only helps the remaining commandos because as they're captured, Waller does end up calling their forces in order to call off everything that was about to go down and spares them essentially. And this is shown as the princess rises out of the water covered in Nina's blood after having stabbed her to death, and the general having given the bride the phone in order for Waller to tell her that there's been a mistake made. Though it doesn't end here, as the bride still ends up confronting the princess privately in her quarters, revealing that she knows of her discussions and convening with Clayface thanks to the security footage that was showing Clayface with the princess days earlier, which Task Force M found during their initial break-in. This allows the bride to trust her gut and go with the strong belief that Cersei's vision was indeed true and that the princess was in fact trying to start the next World War. But what ended up happening is after the real McPherson did confirm Cersei's vision to Waller, the princess ended up having Clayface and hired him in order to go out and kill McPherson. This then allowed Clayface to pose as McPherson in order for the princess to shy away all the suspicion that was already on her from Cersei having that vision. But with the bride confronting the princess, we see that it was far too late for her. And that is not the biggest reason why the bride decided to pull the trigger and put a bullet in her head. While Cersei's dark vision of the future being true certainly helped, the bride confirms just before killing Ilyana that she's killing the princess because she killed Nina. Nina Mazeri was the only friend that the bride had, and the only monster that was on Task Force M who actually possessed any sort of real kindness. It's apparent with each episode in this finale that Nina Mazeri was more of a human than she was a monster. Despite her monstrous appearance, she was the only one on the team who never really killed and had an intent to kill anybody other than possibly for self-defense or some sort of other serious situation that causes for it. But it's just really tragic to see that happen, and we see just how much of a monster the princess ends up being. It's also interesting to see how there's no real apparent retaliation from Pakolasan, especially after the bride had killed the princess. Now, we don't really get any visual confirmation that there was no retaliation or any verbal confirmation in the episode, but it's safe to say that they did not attack back, because we see at the end where the bride with John Economos, he's explaining that she's being rewarded and that there's going to be a wing set for just her and the task force and her new team. So it's safe to say that nothing happened with Pakolasan. Maybe the views of the army that she had and the nation that she was leading didn't align with theirs in terms of starting World War III, or maybe there's something else that's going on that's going to lead down the road for the major DCU that they're building out. As we are left with these lingering questions, we are introduced to the new Task Force M. This sees Dr. Phosphorus and Weasel returning along with Nosferatu, Khalees, and a rebuilt GI robot alongside King Shark. While it's been confirmed that this is the same King Shark from James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, it isn't Sylvester Stallone returning to voice him. It is actually Diedrich Bader, and I still think he does a great job, and I'm still excited to see this new iteration of Task Force M, along with where Season 2 can go and in terms of the plot and the narrative for the wider DCU. Because of course we already have confirmation that Season 2 is coming out, and then we're seeing the rest of the DCU branch out with Superman 2025 and the other planned titles that they're going to drop. Along with this, we also see in a post-credit scene that Eric Frankenstein survives, and he actually is seeking refuge with an old woman similar to the other old woman that he was seen with earlier in other episodes. Now, this does confirm that he would likely be a part of Season 2 and still be trying to win the affections of the bride, even though she already tried to shoot him to death and did leave him to die. But who knows, we might actually see characters from Creature Commandos pop up in other future DCU projects, as James Gunn has expressed that might be the case here. But until Season 2 and until that happens, we do know for right now that Rick Flag Sr. is confirmed to be in Superman, which comes out July 2025. Along with that, James Gunn has confirmed that he is a big part of Peacemaker Season 2. So we know that is on the horizon here for DCU's Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters, which was kicked off by Creature Commandos here. And then, of course, we're going to see other projects like Waller, Supergirl, The Authority, the highly anticipated Lantern Show on HBO, and of course, Batman Brave and the Bold, amongst others. So be on the lookout, because the DCU is really shaping up here. Overall, I really did enjoy the character development seen here and the backgrounds explored in the Creature Commandos show for Season 1. The world building was a standout, effectively set up the larger DC universe and paving the way for the upcoming films like Superman in 2025. Of course, the voice actors, their performances are stellar, and the action scenes were top notch and kept things exciting throughout, especially the showcase of Dr. Phosphorus's powers, at least for me, were one of my highlights for this show. On the downside, I did feel that the episodes could have been a bit longer, allowing for more depth and exploration of the plot. I also wish that there was more showing than telling when it came to story elements, especially in terms of exposition. Lastly, pacing could use some work to ensure a smoother flow, as some moments feel either a bit rushed or a bit dragged. But nonetheless, the show was still a solid 8 out of 10 in my book, and now I'm just eagerly anticipating more DCU content, but I think I could suffice until Superman comes out in July 2025. That does wrap up my thoughts for the season finale for Creature Commandos Season 1. I really hope you guys dug this video and enjoyed what I covered here, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, and if you finished the series, what do you guys think so far, and where do you think we could see the DCU going now that there has been world building established and we know what to expect more or less from these upcoming films and series that they're already planned. Before I go, just a quick reminder here that this is the road to 500 subscribers, so please smash that like button, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Once you do, turn on that notification bell so that way you guys never miss a brand new video, especially with all the planned videos that I have to cover the rest of the DCU Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters. Until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Peace.